One sword family dominates half the world, the House of. Its members are born with both a strong physique and exceptional talent. They rule the world with overwhelming force through combat. Standing on the world's ruins, their family knows only how to conquer. For them, conquest is just another word for control. This law of the jungle defined the very family he was born into. He declared his name as Jin, the youngest son of that family. He remembered choosing the patriarch's sword at the ceremony that foretold his destiny as the heir. An imposing shadowed figure found it interesting that Jin had chosen the sword. He stood triumphantly before the crowd, thinking his future would be full of success and fame. But the moment of triumph ended as a glass barrier shattered around the dark-haired man. He questioned how it could possibly have zero talent for swordsmanship. He was branded the family's disgrace, the worst dunce of the. Suddenly, a voice shouted Jin's name from across the hall. One onlooker dismissed his training, saying he was just waiting for a special sword. The white-haired man then scoffed, asking why he was swinging a wooden sword instead of the. The white-haired man demanded to know why he wouldn't answer. The cloaked figure then threatened their almighty brothers as blue energy erupted from their arm. The white-haired boy attacked the dark-haired boy, yelling that he was asking a question. Clutching his chest in agony, the dark-haired man called himself useless. He looked back nervously and saw a black-haired rival watching him from high above. A hand blocked the sword as a voice asked why he even bothered swinging it. The dark-sleeved figure caught the blow, declaring that it was pointless anyway. The dark-haired boy groaned in agony, struggling against an unseen force. He scoffed at the papers, dismissing them as basic swordsmanship theory. The black-haired man taunted him, questioning if studying theory would make him any less useless. The dark-haired boy pleaded for his broken sword, but the man only mocked him as useless. Suddenly, a powerful figure's arm shattered a wooden barrier as he shouted for his brothers to hold on. The powerful figure forced him down, saying he failed to know his place. He pleaded with them to keep holding on to hope. The powerful figure stepped forward, saying that wasn't necessary. The figure grabbed the dark-haired boy's head, demanding to know what he just said. As they pinned him down, the dark-haired boy yelled that Gilly had nothing to do with this. The powerful figure said his defiance would earn him a lesson in manners. It all began with his brother's bullying. The dark-haired boy decided he didn't care about his pathetic, non-existent talent. He resolved that hard work was the only way to earn his family's recognition. He truly believed he could become a part of the. But a voice declared Jin banished from the family. The dark-haired man stood before the great castle doors marked with a sword. The dark-haired man's gaze fixed on a shimmering light as he let out a sharp breath. He slammed his fist down, declaring he would spare their life for their commendable efforts. He was banished from his family at age 25 and began to wander without purpose. He recalled this was around the time he met his master. Looking at the red-haired woman, he knew his journey had found its purpose. He knew his talent was just the beginning. He realized his greatest talent was the very magic his family considered a taboo. 3 years later, he focused on drawing mana from nature to strengthen his own. An unseen force crashed against the dark-haired male. Powerful blue energy suddenly engulfed the dark-haired boy. Then shadowy tendrils erupted from his glowing arm. Then a blue-haired man wondered what was happening as the energy surrounded him. The dark-haired boy asked who was speaking to him. The entity declared it was the master of all shadows. Identified the colossal figure as Jin. Then the god of shadows proposed a contract to the dark-haired young man. Offered him command over shadow energy and an end to all curses, then stopped mid-sentence. Bound by mystical chains, the dark-haired man learned someone has held a grudge against him since childhood. The narrator revealed his true potential was suppressed by a trivial curse, a claim the dark-haired young man could hardly believe. The curse was bladed illusion, which suppressed his natural talent for the blade. The mysterious figure now understood what had captivated them so completely. Then the figure shattered his chains, promising that from this moment on no curse could ever harm him again. The figure declared that Jin would now become an extraordinary magic swordsman. The entity added that it would enjoy watching over the young man with blue hair. The dark-haired man was silent, absorbing the weight of this new destiny. The figure then swung the dark blade in a single, sharp motion. His decision made, the dark-haired man walked out the door and into the moonlight. A sharp ring of steel sounded as a hand drew the long blade. The dark-haired man unleashed a powerful, sweeping slash of bright energy. The sword came alive with a brilliant blue light, just as had said. The blue-haired man marveled that his sword felt so light, empowering him to reach new heights. The white-haired man exclaimed that the weapon felt completely weightless. Once known as the worst dunce in history, the blue-haired man unleashed a brilliant arc of power. An intricate circle flared to life around his hand, as he realized he could just add magic. The dark-haired young man's mundane sword had ceased to exist. He rejoiced that his hard work had finally come to fruition. 3 armored knights stood vigil in the darkened forest. A bloodied person pleaded for someone to please help. Elsewhere, someone wondered if they had just heard a scream. The dark-haired man felt his body grow strangely heavy. Blood suddenly poured from deep wounds across his face and neck. A small boy called for Master Saul as dark entities loomed over him. The dark-haired man desperately called out, asking if anyone was there. He wondered if he had died in his sleep simply because he was useless. He wondered if he would ever use the power he had finally obtained. He accepted what must come if things were going to be like this. Leading out on the shattered ground, he wondered why he was given another chance. He lowered his hands, completely baffled to touch soft grass. He questioned if these robed men were the ones called the family. He couldn't understand what was happening, since he knew he had definitely died. A woman named Gilly told young Master Jin to cheer up, but he wondered why she was there. Then he noticed one sword glowing brightly among all the rest. The dark-haired boy gasped, realizing the glowing sword was named. He learned that this was the selection ceremony. He realized he had returned to the past. He had returned to his past as the 1-year-old baby Jin. He remembered choosing this sword by chance the first time. But this time he reached for the sword deliberately. The hall erupted with the astonished cry that he had chosen the patriarch's sword. He declared that in this life he would choose it intentionally. He looked up at the massive blade and the armored figure standing beside it. An older man with gray hair couldn't understand how this was possible. The man desperately tried to explain what young Master Jin had done with the patriarch's sword. A voice declared that the youngest had selected. With the selection ceremony over, a command was given to move the youngest to the storm castle. 6 years later, a violent storm besieges the ominous storm castle. Then in the dark, a trembling hand reached for a book. The dark-haired boy sighed in frustration, admitting the book was simply too high. He gripped a golden handle, reflecting on his 6 years at the storm castle. He explained that by his family's rules, he had 3 more years of confinement. Holding the ornate book, the dark-haired boy complained that he was bored. Suddenly, a loud shriek and a flash of light startled the dark-haired boy. A woman in a maid's outfit asked what was wrong with the young master. The woman in a maid's outfit screamed that there was a dead bird in his room. The blue-haired boy concluded only a few people in Storm Castle would do this. Elsewhere, a brown-haired woman stared in awe at the glowing room before her. Then a formally dressed figure spoke to 2 grinning brothers, mockingly pitying a poor bird. Complained that the maid had found it first, but grinned, confirming they put it there for someone to find. They taunted the blue-eyed boy, asking if their cruel gift had moved him to tears. He realized those 2 brats had killed an innocent bird just to torment him. The dark-haired boy warned him that crying would just be annoying. Suddenly, rumbling voices asked the young, blue-haired boy if he could hear them. 2 young men with glowing red eyes asked why the patriarch wouldn't acknowledge them and where the was. He was struck completely silent by their questions. A spiky white-haired boy then appeared, demanding one of them say that again. He then punched the young man, saying he was too quiet to be heard. He then gripped the young man's arm, demanding to be heard. Suddenly, dark energy flared from the spiky white-haired boy's chest. The blue-eyed boy demanded silence as dark energy erupted from his hands. The spiky-haired young man reeled back from the impact with a cry of pain. The gray-haired boy lunged forward, roaring his outrage. Then the dark-haired boy unleashed a glowing punch toward an unseen opponent. His fist erupted in a brilliant flash of blue energy. He declared that his patience had finally run out. His fist connected with the light-haired boy as he screamed that he couldn't take it anymore. The light-haired boy slammed into the far wall with a pained groan. A hand erupted with dark energy, promising that everything was about to change. The dark-haired boy then warned him to stay out of his sight. Suddenly, a red-cloaked figure burst in and demanded to know what was happening. Blue light flared from his grip as he uttered the name Khan. The spiky-haired young man grabbed Jin's arm, demanding to know what was happening. The long-haired figure announced a fight had begun, stunning the white-haired boy. The blue-eyed boy insisted again that they fought suddenly and then collapsed. The armored figure observed the boy was fierce, just as expected of a. When Khan offered to find a doctor, the cloaked figure insisted they had to go somewhere else. The dark-haired boy instructed them to follow him. The dark-haired boy gently touched a wet stone grave in the rain. He remained before the grave, unmoving in the downpour. The light-haired boy now stood with him, both leaning exhausted against a tree. Then the dark-haired boy asked Jin if he was going to just leave them there. The long-haired man warned that the rainstorm would soon get stronger. As the long-haired man watched, the hooded figure suddenly glowed blue, realizing who they were. The dark-haired figure in a blue hood declared they must be made aware of what they had done. He confirmed he would act on his young master's command. The figure in the blue hood stood with the long-haired man as a heavy rain began to fall. The long-haired man stood in the rain, his silent gaze fixed on the hooded figure. He realized the force he just witnessed was definitely not aura. He He couldn't believe the blue energy flaring from his hand was mana. Then the hooded figure realized this was no mere scuffle between brothers. The long-haired man knew he must report this to the patriarch. The large, injured man called out to the formal attendant, who acknowledged him as Sir Knight. He commanded someone to bring him a horse. From a window, a dark-haired boy watched the horses being brought out into the rain. The dark-haired boy knew the man was going to report to his father. A voice revealed that the guardian knight Khan was also an observer. With dark energy swirling from his hand, the dark-haired boy understood Khan would view it as magic. He called it shadow energy, proof of his contract with. This power proved his contract with was still valid even in this life. The dark-haired boy explained his contract's curse immunity let him avoid the bladed illusion. With the dunce of dead, he swore this life would differ from his last. The blue-haired boy knew the only thing left was to meet his father. Mary asked what he knew about the sudden order to gather. The white-haired man figured this wasn't about the twins, who wouldn't be out of Storm Castle until next year. Wondered aloud if the visitor was coming to see their youngest. A voice reminded the dark-haired woman that the youngest chose the patriarch's sword. The white-haired man admitted they could never know what father was thinking. Luna, the family's first flag-bearer, silenced the speaker and called for Mariand. The dark-haired woman reflected on how father had returned specifically to see him. Still, the dark-haired woman questioned if he was actually that useful. The brown-haired woman wondered if the patriarch was coming to see his children. The dark-haired young boy realized Khan must have told father everything. He reasoned Khan was too inflexible to report anything but the facts, as the brown-haired woman asked him to turn around. She knew father was returning to understand this power, and to see if he was coming for it or for her. The voice declared he could be an asset for the clan's future, as the grand gate opened to a brilliant light. A powerful man with white hair stepped forward as everyone hailed the patriarch. The patriarch's first order was to bring him the twins. The patriarch called down to and, who immediately answered their father. The unseen speaker demanded to know the light-haired boy's fault in his altercation with Jin. The boys claimed they were not at fault, insisting Jin was the one who hurt them. The dark-haired boy exclaimed that his unknown power was not aura. The intense-eyed man stammered that it looked just like magic. He told the light-haired boy that magic was forbidden in their family, as they both shared a sinister grin. The dark-haired woman insisted they interrogate Jin, but her father told her that was enough. The stern man warned his sons they would not survive in the family like this. The boys flinched at the sudden order to go bring Jin. The blue-haired boy considered his father, Chiron, the strongest and coldest man he had ever known. He was the strongest in this era, a demigod known as a Genesis Knight. Becoming a demigod cost him nearly every human emotion. He became a being with nothing left but an obsession for his family's prosperity. To his father, his lack of talent with a sword meant he might as well not have existed. He swore that in this life, no one would be able to disregard him. The young boy walked forward, protected by the blue energy of the powerful man behind him. Elsewhere, a dark-haired man surveyed the area while a woman stood watch just behind him. The gray-haired man suddenly called out, while the dark-haired girl looked over curiously. The dark-haired figure bowed low at the foot of the stairs and greeted the patriarch. The white-haired man demanded to know why he was called patriarch, not father. The young boy with dark blue hair recalled his brothers, sisters, and the guardian knights. The unseen speaker explained that the high number of clan visitors made her visit seem official, and answer the woman accepted. The white-haired man said he was there for a different reason and asked to be called father. Then the armored figure stepped forward to ask the same question he had posed to the brothers. The white-haired man asked what wrong the brothers committed in their fight. The blue-eyed boy clenched his fist to his chest and declared this was revenge. A voice explained that a must always return what they are given. The dark-haired figure grinned, adding that this applied to both grace and resentment. The dark-haired figure's expression hardened into absolute conviction. The voice then commanded everyone in the hall to leave the young boy alone. The armored figures wondered if the youngest son had passed the patriarch's test. The dark-haired woman enforced the patriarch's order, which the red-cloaked figure agreed to follow. With glowing eyes and a menacing grin, she anticipated a private talk with her father. A large masked figure told the young boy from a glowing doorway that he wasn't bad. He said he sent everyone away to ask about the special power the twins mentioned. He told the dark-haired boy that forbid magic because it hinders true swordsmanship. The colossal figure demanded to know what power he was using. The blue-haired boy declared he would not allow this magic to pass lightly. The dark-haired boy murmured, finally recognizing the power before him. He knew the real problem was his father's awareness of this power. His father would not ignore this because it was the power of. The mysterious figure observed that this strange power was neither magic nor aura. The figure wondered what to call the nameless energy swirling from their hand. The speaker simply began with a polite phrase, their hand glowing with power. The The dark-haired boy asked his father to bestow a name upon it. This was the power that made his father flinch in sudden shock. This was the power that the founder of Run once possessed. A stern man with white hair recognized that power instantly. The blue-eyed boy summoned a dark orb, recognizing it as shadow energy. The dark-haired boy wondered if this energy meant the child was destined to lead the family. As dark energy glowed from his hand, the dark-haired boy called out to his father. The gray-haired man revealed this was the power of the God of Shadows. The voice confirmed that yes, this was the God of Shadows. He revealed was the God who founded their family through a contract with Lord, but had not appeared to the since Lord's death. He suggested that for some reason, the God was now trying to return to the through him. Then the gray-haired man asked his father about one thing. The blue-haired boy wondered if the God was more powerful than his father. A white-haired figure contemplated the grand, ornate building before him. The cloaked warrior confessed he had never fought a god before. The dark-haired young man taunted him about never having fought a god before. The white-haired man declared that only the strongest man on earth would speak such words. The mysterious figure addressed the dark-haired boy as his son, a gloved hand resting on an ornate object. A jolt of disbelief shot through the dark-haired boy. The armored figure patted the young boy's head, saying his question had become a topic of great interest. The regal figure called his visit a good decision, prompting the boy to ask how he'd use that shadow energy. He vowed to use this power for the sake of his family. The white-haired man's entire purpose centered on his family. The dark-haired man erupted in laughter, calling it an amusing lie. A voice then accused him of beating his brothers and leaving them to suffer in the storm. The dark-haired boy realized he had to take this power for himself. A white-haired man agreed, saying that he liked the idea. Suddenly, the dark-haired boy's eyes shot wide in alarm. The white-haired man warned that he would be watching the boy very closely. He flinched, scanning the lavish details of the ornate room around him. With a sharp breath, he clenched his hands into fists. Breathing heavily, the dark-haired boy realized he had gotten through safely. He cupped the shadow energy, pleased to finally have his father's expectations. He clenched his fist, affirming that this life was completely different from his last. A smiling woman named Mary offered him a package, and he simply asked what it was. The dark-haired woman explained the box was a heavy present from his older sister. She commanded him to boil it, eat everything, and get strong quickly. When Mary asked where her luggage was, the dark-haired girl said she gave it to the youngest one. He stared into the void, wondering why this was happening to him. Behind him, the brown-haired woman could only stare in utter shock. He couldn't believe Mary had given a phoenix's heart to a child. She was Mary, a 6-star knight and 7th flag-bearer who also possessed a secret name. Another legend spoke of the madwoman of the south, who carved through armies of knights. He realized the gift was his sister's demand to hurry up and become her opponent. He considered an elixir that granted fire resistance and growth if eaten at a young age. He recalled that a 6-star mage needed a phoenix's heart to safely summon one. He believed he might even summon a phoenix by himself. The young boy thanked Gilly, who asked if he had been waiting long. He was told to eat the soup from Lady Mary but wanted to speak first. The dark-haired boy asked his older brothers to please say what they needed to quickly. They awkwardly claimed the food was just too much for him to eat. A voice then questioned how badly they really wanted the food. And the dark-haired boy said he only wanted one favor in return. The two boys demanded the soup, saying they had done what was asked. The blue-haired boy said it was already on the table, surprising the dark-haired boy. The boys stared at the tiny portions, wondering where the rest of their soup was. One brother asked if a teaspoon was too little, but the dark-haired boy said he never promised a specific amount. The dark-haired boy announced he kept his promise, earning a sarcastic thanks from his brother. Meanwhile, a blue-haired boy stood thoughtfully in the rain. Elsewhere, a cloaked figure admitted the work was better than expected. He determined that for the wall's thickness, 1-star magic would suffice. The cloaked figure admitted he was getting frustrated as green magic surged from his hand. He revealed his mana had been building up with nothing to use it on. He unleashed his built-up power, conjuring a glowing green magic circle at his feet. The green energy erupted around him, crackling and ripping rocks straight from the earth. He smiled, knowing he had finally succeeded. He had arrived at the secret library. The blue-haired man admitted it felt weird, since he never reached this place in his previous life. He remembered his older brother telling him he needed to say a trigger phrase. He declared that a child was there to console. He screamed as a powerful blue aura erupted all around him. The dark-haired boy in a cloak marveled at the secret library, a place only flag-bearers could enter. He recalled being told this place had no purpose for him because he wasn't a flag-bearer. He said this had turned into a great help that he was now putting to good use. The blue-haired boy questioned what he was seeing. The dark-haired boy watched a glowing figure emerge from a chamber and asked what it was. The dark-haired boy drew a vortex of dark and blue energy around himself. The dark-haired boy questioned the scales now spreading across his skin. The cloaked figure questioned whether the form inside the tank was even human. A pale hand reached out to touch the swirling blue energy inside its container. The blue-haired boy wondered why such a thing could even exist. Then a horrifying possibility struck him. A child was there to console. The light-haired boy asked if the glowing blue projection was Black Dragon. He couldn't believe the legend of the slumbering Black Dragon was true. Another figure appeared, a blue-haired boy reaching his hand toward the spectacle. The tall figure brusquely asked the dark-haired boy where to find the secret tomes. A large cloaked figure reached out, wondering if they had finally arrived. Clicking the door open, the blue-haired boy realized he had found them. He marveled at the secret tomes from all kinds of families, wondering where to begin. He would start with the family's books, since they were also a famous swordmaster family. He considered the 3-star magic theory to be pretty difficult. He wanted to take the books but hesitated, afraid he might get caught. The blue-haired boy planned to copy them with every visit. Then a dark-haired boy sat at his desk, diligently writing by lamplight. His intense focus broke with a single, silent question. He asked aloud who else was in the room. He was certain that no one from the Storm Castle could possibly enter the library. A menacing figure emerged from the light, demanding to know what he was. The blue-haired boy couldn't understand why had suddenly appeared. He was certain had never awakened in his past life. He decided to act like a respectful child and greeted the family's guardian. The dark-haired man responded with a low growl and a sharp, menacing grin. A large shadow figure roared, enraged at being called a guardian. He raged that he was not some mere guardian. He cursed them for their teachings, struggling not to unleash his anger on the small figure. The shadowy figure's frustration shifted to confusion, realizing the smell had only led to a child. He loomed over the boy, demanding to know why he smelled of shadow energy. He declared that after 1,000 years asleep, he still remembered this distinct scent of shadow energy. He wondered if his own shadow energy was the reason had awakened. He wondered where this powerful energy was coming from. Then he considered if he should test something out. The dark-haired man asked Nim if he knew something after all. A massive shadowy entity appeared, asking if it was what he meant. The blue-haired boy stated his power was from the god of shadows, causing the entity to reel back. Staring down in shock, the dark-haired man asked if he was serious. He asked if this little child was the contractor he was promised after 1,000 years. A single bead of sweat traced a path down the dark-haired boy's face. A glowing figure leaned down to address the boy, who respectfully called him. He explained his promise to require the boy's cooperation to keep. The dark-haired boy then asked if the figure was promise. He deferred the explanation, saying he had just woken up and the figure was too young to understand. The figure formally introduced himself to the dark-haired boy as. He was representative, a friend, and the last descendant of the first being of Shadow. According to the 1,000-year contract, a monstrous entity appeared with immense power. The massive shadow creature declared it would now be by his side. Starlight flared in the blue-haired man's eyes as he began to swear his oath. The dark-haired boy confronted the massive monster, demanding to know what side it was on. The creature demanded his name, so the dark-haired boy identified himself as contractor. A confident smirk touched the blue-haired boy's lips. The blue-haired boy announced his name was Jin. He then declared he was the 13th and youngest child of the family. The hooded boy was no enemy, but instead the founder's guardian dragon and a close friend. The hooded figure touched the dragon's snout, wondering why never mentioned his own guardian dragon. The dark-haired man realized it was because had fallen into a deep slumber. Then a young boy with blue hair appeared at the door, calling out for. A man with wavy hair offered the child snacks while the boy planned his questions for. After visiting the secret library for months, the dark-haired man suddenly wondered why he fought with. The dark-haired man couldn't remember 1,000 years ago, but he was certain of one thing about. He went crazy over strawberry pie, demanding to know why there were only 7. He explained that he transcribes the tomes by hand, since he can't risk getting caught taking them. The dark-haired boy explained he only understood about 30%. The dark-haired man reached out, assuring him his progress was impressive for someone so young. He clarified that such praise was only for normal kids. He declared that this was normal for him. He had 12 older siblings, not to mention his parents and the elders. To destroy those people, he knew he had to work harder. He then asked how much the founder would have understood from the book. He wondered how he currently measured up to the strongest being in history. He then wondered aloud about the name. A voice declared the dark-haired boy couldn't have understood even a single line at his age. The cloaked figure contrasted theory with reality, mentioning someone who fought well without ever reading the books. The voice conceded his potential, but insisted he was not as good as. He then asked if this meant he could never become like the founder. The dark-haired boy questioned the blunt refusal. The dark-haired man called him a contractor of like, smart enough to read those books. The dark-haired man encouraged him to train hard, promising he could one day be as strong as. The unseen figure ruffled the boy's hair, suggesting he could even surpass him. The long-haired man asked the kid if he knew his nickname. A giant hand outlined in blue light delicately touched a distant star. The hooded figure held a swirling galaxy between its hands, calling it infinity. The tall man declared that because power is limitless, the young boy's is as well. The tall, dark-haired man encouraged the boy, offering to teach him a new technique. The dark-haired man declared the release of his shadow energy. The dark-haired man explained this was the foundation for all beings who use shadow energy. He warned him to learn slowly, so the boy asked what to do first. He explained that he must first form his mana, confusing the boy. He wondered why he had to repeat this, having already done it so much in his past life. He explained that forming and moving mana proficiently would require 2 to 3 years of practice alone. The dark-haired boy declared that 2 or 3 years was simply too late. Creating a ball of energy, the long-haired man said the next lesson was learning to move mana. Presenting a glowing orb, the dark-haired boy asked if the shadowy figure would teach him now. Asked how he did it, the long-haired man explained he's always had this ability. Disbelieving voice asked how the dark-haired boy already knew how to move his mana. The dark-haired boy bragged only a genius could do this, earning praise from the tall figure for being amazing. The dark-haired boy then offered a sneak peek of what shadow energy release is like. Shadow energy is derived from the shadows, just as a dark pool began spreading from his feet. He explained that all shadows were born from, as darkness swirled from a candle. That darkness then expanded, its tendrils engulfing the entire room. This meant was the owner of all the world's shadows. And a voice proclaimed the dark-haired boy was sole contractor. His newfound power then surged forward in a violent rush. This meant he could also become the master of all the world's shadows. Then the dark-haired boy asked him what he thought. He explained that this was shadow energy release. Then the dark-haired boy glanced back over his shoulder in shock. 6 months later, the brothers turned 10 and said farewell to the Storm Castle before departing. Confused, the dark-haired boy turned toward a voice calling him young master. He celebrated his 9th birthday as a smiling woman presented him with a cake. The dark-haired boy thanked everyone and instructed Gilly to serve the cake. A maid called out to young Master Jin, as a red-caped figure wondered if he was Khan. Then the red-caped figure apologized for the interruption, and Jin asked what he wanted. A white-haired warrior considered her words as she walked down an ornate hall. Then a silver-haired figure appeared, their long hair billowing dramatically. A voice declared that Mistress Luna had come to visit. Sudden arrival startled a dark-haired boy and a brown-haired woman holding a birthday cake. The dark-haired boy asked if something big had happened to their family. Then he wondered if she had found out about the secret library. The dark-haired boy called out respectfully to Luna. The white-haired woman told the youngest they had grown, hearing in reply that they should have dressed better. An armored man rested his hand on the boy's head, saying he didn't need permission to see his brother. The white-haired woman touched his shoulder, asking if he felt unwell, but he told her that wasn't the problem. The silver-haired woman admitted she was actually a bit nervous. The dark-haired boy confessed to feeling on edge, which the armored figure questioned. The tradition is for siblings to keep each other in check, making the dark-haired boy wonder if that's what Jin expected. A long-haired figure agreed they had been inconsiderate. The dark-haired boy couldn't understand their sudden admission. The woman in the maid's uniform said his youth made her forget he was a. The white-haired woman also apologized. Kneeling before the dark-haired boy, an armored woman asked to dismiss his guardians for a private talk. He couldn't believe she wanted to speak with him in private. He agreed, saying that although he didn't understand it, the situation didn't seem bad. As rain fell outside, a voice introduced him as Jin, their youngest sibling. The white-haired woman said she was visiting so suddenly to tell him something important. Jin asked her what that would be. She said his behavior during their father's last visit attracted the attention of all his siblings. With a tight grip, she warned that all their siblings would watch him the moment he left the castle. She then singled out the youngest sibling. She hoped he wouldn't lose his own happiness in the family fight. The light-haired figure wished he wouldn't suffer in the dirty succession battle. He couldn't believe his sister gave up being matriarch for such a simple reason. He wondered why she never warned him about the sibling rivalry in his previous life. The white-haired woman questioned if she wasn't even worth a warning. Or maybe they never saw her as competition to begin with. Grasping Luna Nim's hand, he said he was ever grateful for her words. The dark-haired boy had absolutely no intention of sitting out this fight. Nim insisted to Jin this was about more than just their competition. The white-haired woman stared in disbelief as he confessed to surviving a past assassination attempt. He insisted he could not back down from this fight and demanded to know who was there. A voice boomed from the glowing cup, demanding to know who dared attempt such a thing in the storm castle. The white-haired woman questioned which sibling would dare attack him in the castle. Jin answered that he had not yet discovered which of his siblings tried to kill him. Jin insisted he was fine, telling the unseen figure he was unharmed by the assassination attempt. The pale-haired figure was thankful to learn that not all of her siblings hated her. A hand appeared behind the dark-haired boy, who realized Jin was now caught in their family's dirty battle. The pale-haired figure embraced the dark-haired boy from behind, telling him this saddened her. He was surprised by her tender heart, as the pale-haired figure told him not to be so sad. The pale-haired figure announced it was his birthday, startling him with the news. She explained she was actually there to give him his birthday gift. He looked into the box she presented and asked if it was a pendant. She asked him to face away so she could put on the pendant. She explained that if he ever faced an impossible situation, he could break the gem to summon her. She fastened the glowing pendant and told him never to take it off. The white-haired woman gently wished Jin a happy 9th birthday. Then a server presented a slice of strawberry cake to the white-haired woman. She fed Jin the first bite of his cake. Elsewhere, a light-haired woman smirked with quiet confidence. The white-haired woman said she needed to get going. The young boy with dark hair waved and told her to take care. A man with spiky dark hair confronted the boy, demanding to know what was around his neck. He answered that it was a birthday gift. When the spiky-haired man remarked on the love behind the gift, the dark-haired boy simply asked what it was. He called it an artifact of Demon King Orgel, for which countless people had once risked their lives. The dark-haired man explained it resists low-level magic and enhances the wearer's own magical abilities. The long-haired figure revealed he knew so much because they lived during the same period. He took the box, questioning how she sensed her sister's energy from so far away. The dark-haired boy was shocked to hear his sister had sensed the figure's energy. One of them was called a worrywart for asking if she would tell their family. He was reminded that the person who gave him the gift would not let her brother die. An unseen voice confirmed he could trust his sister, as she sensed a strong new energy. Although the dessert tasted like heaven, the spiky-haired man resolved to feign ignorance. The shadowy figure instructed the blue-haired boy to remember one thing. The light-haired hooded figure called Jin her brother. The white-haired woman swore she would always be on their side. He declared that he was now 10 years old. A dark-haired man and a light-haired man clashed while a voice began preparing to leave Storm Castle. He put everything he had into one powerful punch. He unleashed the punch, shattering the very air around him. A hand reached through the swirling energy to offer him a glowing object. The long-haired man met the blast with an open palm, confirming it was just as he expected. The unseen man realized why the boy had caught the patriarch's interest. He understood from the boy's gaze that he was the one being judged. The instructor said they would stop there for today. An unseen voice called out to Jin, who asked if there was a problem with the training. The long-haired mentor bowed and said it was an honor to teach the short-haired boy. He swore to provide flawless training in the short time before the boy had to leave. The blue-haired boy told him he would be in his care until then. The dark-haired boy studied the flickering flame held in his hand. The dark-haired boy smirked in triumph until a voice called him young master. A woman in a maid's uniform wondered aloud if the flame was hot. The dark-haired boy explained the flame felt like warm water thanks to Lady Mary's gift. The brown-haired woman and the dark-haired boy both admitted this was their first time seeing the Phoenix Heart's effects. The brown-haired young man estimated he'd absorbed around half of it. The brown-haired woman announced they would leave tomorrow and asked if he needed anything. The brown-haired woman gave a confused agreement, her eyes fixed on the books in box. The brown-haired young man confirmed he wanted the books packed separately to read during the journey. Acknowledging his request, she asked if there was anything else he needed. She confirmed she understood and offered to make him a strawberry pie. The dark-haired boy cut himself off, suddenly remembering something important. As someone announced a stroll, a woman named Gilly exclaimed she'd be right back. The dark-haired boy called for her and was met by a voice asking if he had returned. The small boy confirmed he was leaving tomorrow, and a long-haired figure eagerly replied he had been waiting for this day. The dark-haired boy then asked how the other person planned on following him. The long-haired man told him not to worry, introducing himself as the legendary Black Dragon. The dark-haired boy demanded to know why the Black Dragon never mentioned he had become weak. The Black Dragon scoffed that he obviously wasn't fine after sleeping for 1,000 years. The dark-haired boy stated he would absolutely regain his powers and grow stronger with him. The Black Dragon asserted that he was his guardian dragon. The dark-haired boy recalled that was a magic swordsman family when the dragon told him to become one like. The dark-haired boy recalled hearing this from in his past life. Their founder was history's most powerful magic swordsman. But he understood this crucial fact had been almost entirely forgotten. He explained that rejection of magic stems from a humiliating vow made 1,000 years ago. He noted that while the family still worships him, they would be troubled if he actually appeared before them. He declared they would both be worshipped for finding the world's noblest being. The small boy questioned if would truly act, receiving only a thoughtful hum from the long-haired man. He promised to hide well, an absurd plan the small boy still accepted. One speaker proposed a magical illusion, but another worried that it too would be discovered. The dragon of shadows grabbed the small boy's head, reminding him exactly who he was. A voice reassured him that creating an illusion would be no problem at all. The tall blue figure admitted he lacked the strength to maintain the illusion for very long. The long-haired man swore he would push himself as hard as needed until the boy was grown. The dark-haired boy confirmed he understood, but the voice told him to show more respect. The dark-haired man announced he had brought something special for the blue-haired figure. He presented a pie from the year's first strawberries and some alcohol he'd stolen from Gilly. A voice told the spiky-haired man not to make illusions, but he acted completely insulted. Another voice asked to meet his nanny, though the other only teased they would think about it. The brown-haired woman warned the young master his new life would be far too busy for things like her homemade pie. The brown-haired woman promised she would do her best and devote herself to him at the main castle. A woman in a fur-trimmed coat addressed the towering figure as young master. Guardian knights and greeted young master Jin. The dark-haired boy agreed to let the unseen party escort him to the Garden of Swords. The lead armored man announced it was time to go, leading the party down a wide stone staircase. On October 30th, 1790, the dark-haired boy finally left the Storm Castle. The dark-haired boy was on his way to his main estate, the Garden of Swords.
A woman's desperate cry for the young master shattered the sudden silence. Guards shouted a warning about an ambush as a woman told the young boy not to worry. A voice commanded someone named to attack, citing the strength of 2 guardian knights. The woman reported about 20 enemies, and the dark-haired boy warned of archers too. Couldn't believe and were fighting right now. Billy screamed that they had to get out of the carriage right now. He insisted the guardian knights were forbidden from leaving one of their children alone. The light-haired woman knew she needed one of them by her side. The white-haired knights simply agreed that one of them had to be a traitor. The dark-haired boy warned Gilly they had to escape the carriage, suspecting hidden equipment. The light-haired man agreed with the young master through gritted teeth. The light-haired man promised to protect the young master, warning them he might have to go overboard. An unseen force erupted, catching the woman in a swirling vortex of debris. Gilly worried about being punished as she fell, but an unseen voice told her to focus. Meanwhile, the dark-haired man carried the brown-haired woman, saying he had to confirm something with the others. The brown-haired woman realized the fighters might actually be their allies. The dark-haired young man wondered about the strange quiet, since now was the perfect time for an attack. Then, a red-haired commander ordered his forces to find Jin and block the left. The brown-haired woman embraced the boy, confirming it was the symbol of a demon and Black Sakura. 2 factions were revealed, the Family of Magic and the Black King Squad. From across the snow, a white-robed figure shouted that he'd found both Gilly Loran and Jin. Figure in black ordered her guards to make protecting Jin their only priority. Drawing his sword, a man named announced that sent them to rescue Jin. Lunging forward with swords drawn, the guards demanded to know who dared to mess with their young master. He realized they were fakes because true 7-star knights would never struggle so badly. Then the attackers all flinched back from an unseen force. A hooded figure demanded to know who they were and who they served. The muscular man scoffed that the question was obvious. He roared that he would never tell a dog of anything. The man with brown hair asked for a plan, prompting the young master to suggest killing one. The dark-haired young man commanded them to cut an arm off the other and bring him over. The hooded figure promised to obey and unleashed a blast of energy from above. The glowing energy slams into the brown-haired man. The fur-lined man unleashed a devastating burst of orange energy. The white-haired warrior cursed as he furiously swung his glowing sword. The white-haired young man's words were cut short as blood sprayed across his face. The light-haired woman slashed her glowing sword across the white-haired man's chest. A brilliant burst of energy illuminated her unwavering gaze. The brown-haired figure cried out as the white-haired man unleashed a furious burst of fire. The brown-haired woman stood over the defeated armored man as energy arced around her. He dragged the armored man by his hair, saying their masters had clearly underestimated their opponents. The white-haired man strained to rise, saying he had to become a nanny of. The brown-haired woman stated that only a warrior of 7-star or higher could face her. The dark-haired boy stated they should have sent several 8-star knights to assassinate. Screaming, the white-haired man warned that the reign of was coming to an end. The red-haired man stated he wanted that as well. Jin declared he didn't want the old reign but the start of his own. Dark entity with a single glowing eye erupted from the white-haired man's head. The man with dark hair praised the great entity, and the man with white hair cried out the name. The dark-haired man repeated the name as a question. The name belonged to a renowned mage family that ruled the other half of the world. He said that unlike the clan, pursued the absolute pinnacle of magic. 1,000 years ago, sealed magic with a humiliating oath. As he struggled, the white-haired man realized his attacker was just a follower of. His commander ordered Gilly to throw the man away, calling him unworthy of interrogation. Though and were lifelong enemies, the tortured man only begged for his captor to kill him. The dark-haired boy considered that his followers had simply done as they pleased. But he realized something was wrong as a skeletal hand ripped through the clouds. The brown-haired woman knew even a sophisticated disguise could not deceive a 7-star warrior. The dark-haired boy wondered if that bastard was involved. Gilly reported to the young master that she had completed his orders. He confirmed the captain was, promising his family would reward the man for creating a successful diversion. The red-haired warrior promised to do his best until they reached the teleportation gate. The armored commander warned his soldiers to be cautious and silent until they reached the gate. The captain announced that they could depart now. The red-haired man declared it was time to depart. The red-haired man dismissed his companion's concern about leaving the fakes behind. An unseen superior commended Gilly for making a good example out of the defeated. The brown-haired woman said a village was nearby, where they would wait for the snow to stop. Gilly then urged the unseen person to continue. The dark-haired boy said not to worry, since even the Night Khan was caught completely by surprise. She explained that his high rank would make it harder to notice anything amiss, so sharing her strategy was safe. The haired figure simply said she was sorry. The dark-haired boy thought Gilly was still the same as before. Nanny's fate was tied to the child she cradled in her arms. He remembered Gilly was also his nanny in his previous life. Because he had been talentless, his nanny was scorned and despised as well. He recalled the day he was banished from the family, when Gilly was cast out with him. His nanny bowed her head, telling him she was sorry for not serving him well. He didn't want to be harsh on her but knew Gilly needed to strengthen her resolve this time. He refused to let Gilly accept punishment, ordering her not to blame herself. The black-haired boy told her she was not just his nanny, but also his only guardian knight. The unseen speaker warned the woman not to let trivial matters bother her during the escort. He warned her not to make him say those things ever again. The brown-haired woman agreed as the red-haired man vowed to rectify the situation. The brown-haired woman realized he said those things for her sake and resolved not to worry him any further. The dark-haired boy was relieved that the brown-haired girl had finally cheered up. The red-haired man requested 2 rooms, but the brown-haired boy was thinking about fake guardian knights. The dark-haired boy theorized that a specific person was almost certainly involved. The dark-haired man faced the transformation sorcerer and his knights. Voice explained that even dragons are unable to perform a perfect transformation. Only could achieve a perfect transformation, plunging the world into chaos with his crimes. The dark-haired young man considered that if was involved, things had just become very complicated. Captain offered assistance while the brown-haired figure noted the boy had yet to do anything prominent. He realized the man arrested in his past life could now become a very useful ally. But he had no reason to take in someone who had pointed a sword at him. He needed to check what had changed from his past life before could cause more trouble. Female attendant informed him she would be standing guard outside. The attendant quietly called out to the young master. Lying in bed, the dark-haired boy muttered in quiet surprise. Then a black cat meowed as its tail swished playfully. The dark-haired boy shifted in bed, muttering that it was far too noisy. The dark-haired boy sat up and stretched, wondering aloud if he had fallen asleep. He acknowledged his training was tiring for his body, then questioned a strange new noise. He called out to a black cat that was meowing at him through the window. He stuttered in disbelief, asking if it was truly them. He scoffed at their plan to follow him by turning into cats. The hissing cat drew a quick apology from one voice and a mocking laugh from another. The boy in a waistcoat smiled, admitting he was surprised by the cat's current form. He scoffed, saying he had expected a disguise like one of his horsemen. The long-haired man yelled that his actions would get him noticed by the knights in the boy's family. The figure in black crushed something underfoot, asking if they knew how tough it had been to follow. The large dark-haired figure cried out in recognition, unleashing a blinding burst of energy. The brown-haired woman in black burst in, demanding to know what was wrong. The dark-haired man cried out and collapsed, his head wreathed in steam. The brown-haired woman erupted in blue energy, accusing them of going after the young master. The brown-haired woman pinned a man to the ground, demanding he explain himself before she tore him to pieces. The falling figure cried out, realizing the person they saw was Gilly. The long-haired man ecstatically greeted his strawberry pie, much to the woman's disgust and the boy's horror. The smirking man said he had been looking forward to meeting them. Voice named the man first as the Black Dragon and Guardian. The dark-haired boy stepped forward, claiming he already knew his precious strawberry pie. Laughingly told the bowing worker he would gladly forgive her rudeness. When the dark-haired boy asked why he was a strawberry pie, explained he was just that wonderful and beautiful. He asked the brown-haired woman to sit down so he could explain everything. The dark-haired boy apologized to Gilly for his lies while the brown-haired woman admitted how much she never knew. The dark-haired man recounted the recent marvels, magic, a contract with, and now a dragon. As his nanny, the brown-haired woman could only express her amazement and joy. Meanwhile, a light-haired woman welcomed Gilly to their group, ordering him to keep their relationship and awakening a secret. Promised to always watch over the boy, earning Strawberry Pie's sincere gratitude. The brown-haired girl asked about the loud noise, as a dark-haired figure lectured the small boy. Character suddenly cried out that they had fallen, their impact splintering the floor. Despite his companion's worry, the young master casually said they could probably trust him. The cloaked figure presented a crest to see, and was immediately recognized as a staff member in a fur-trimmed coat. Invited the group to follow them for premium seats. An unseen guide informed them the trip was fast, following a 2-hour wait. The brown-haired woman addressed the dark-haired boy as young master. As the nanny expressed her concerns, the dark-haired boy clarified that she meant his magic. The dark-haired boy agreed they would disapprove and promised to hide his magic. Then something made the dark-haired boy gasp. He realized he was looking at the mark of the golden dragon. Nearby, a woman with white hair was watching intently. The woman with white hair questioned the name as she walked between her guards. The woman with white hair sat silently at her desk, watching the others. The dark-haired boy wondered about the person who looked so familiar. The man with long white hair grumbled that he had a bad feeling about today. The regal woman with brown hair was disgusted to see those people here. The man with long white hair remarked that the kitten was cute. The white-haired boy beckoned, asking the cat to come and be a good boy. The black cat violently clawed his outstretched hand, while someone cried out for the young master. The white-haired person dismissed the animal's attack and told them drawing a sword before it was foolish. The white-haired person considered what to do next. The brown-haired woman admitted to testing the boy, remarking he was surprisingly composed. The white-haired person introduced himself as, and apologized for his previous rudeness. The dark-haired boy uttered the name with sudden recognition. He realized was the genius heir, a magician he once considered untouchable. Mused that it was a fun feeling to meet him as a kid his own age. The dark-haired boy admitted his own curiosity, relieved to find the other wasn't a complete idiot. Asked for an assessment, one figure warned the other their joke could have cost them a few fingers. The white-haired man laughed, amused that even his companion's humor was violent. The dark-haired boy demanded to know if they thought he was joking. The white-haired man relented, saying he would offer some advice. Advised him not to harm other, but the white-haired woman called it a good joke. The white-haired woman then stated her father is Chiron and his is Celiac. The dark-haired boy doubted the clans would get involved in a simple children's fight. The dark-haired boy acknowledged her lesson and promised to repay the debt one day. The dark-haired boy insisted she repay him now, and she simply asked what he needed. The white-haired girl asked him to stay quiet until the teleportation gate activated. Elsewhere, an observer wondered aloud if Jin would become amazing in just a couple of years. The white-haired young master thrilled at the idea of him becoming his lifelong enemy. The dark-haired boy wondered if the entire family was completely out of their minds. An announcement warned passengers of side effects as the Grand Hall's teleportation system activated. As he vanished in blue energy, Jin shouted that he hoped they would meet again. He declared that they should never see each other again. The brown-haired woman greeted the young black-haired boy, saying she had been waiting for him. An elderly man introduced himself as the second-place housekeeper. Voice acknowledged that his journey must have been a difficult one. Voice welcomed him to his main estate. Voice introduced him to the Garden of Swords. At the top of the stairs, a man with white hair and his followers stared down. A woman named Rosa, the lady of the house, said it had been a while. The dark-haired boy answered dutifully, but Rosa was confused by his response. Suddenly, a black cat with glowing yellow eyes appeared. From nearby, an older man with white hair at his temples watched the scene unfold. When his father asked if he had picked up a stray, the dark-haired boy confirmed he took the cat in. The stern gray-haired man noted how the boy didn't just pick it up, he took it in. The voice approved of his certainty, saying it was the correct attitude for when they gain something. The elderly patriarch asked his son for the child's name. The long-haired woman in armor told her mother that his name was Butterfly. The gray-haired man exploded with rage, questioning how the name could be given to a mere cat. The small, dark-haired boy stammered an apology, pleading for it to be enough. The gray-haired man demanded why the youngest attached the name to the cat. The dark-haired boy explained that he needed to be responsible for the cat's name. He wanted the name to have weight because this was the first life he had ever taken in. The man with white hair found this amusing, asking if the youngest understood the weight of the name. The dark-haired boy vowed that he would be the one to pay back anyone who insulted Butterfly. The new voice observed that the youngest had a talent for making enemies. He observed that the siblings' glares were clear proof of his point. He told his father he would also have a talent for killing his enemies. The bearded man then warned everyone to keep their guard up around this boy. But a muscular man with white hair challenged anyone who dared to handle the youngest child. 4 years later, Jin was a 14-year-old knight and a low-rank cadet. His instructor said their training was done, but Jin asked if they would only practice in the morning. His instructor asked if he had forgotten about training with Lady Luna. Jin reached for his sword, deciding he would head to training after lunch. Jin refused to eat because he didn't want to face his siblings. Meanwhile in the cafeteria, a server confirmed they would let her know. Servant informed the dark-haired boy that they had brought him his food. Guardian Knight cadet named politely presented the meal. It was a 13-year-old commoner who would soon fall behind in his training. He knew the young cadet was fated to be disqualified and expelled. Then the dark-haired boy asked the young cadet how the food tasted. The cadet expressed his overwhelming gratitude for the meat, forcing the young master to tell him that was enough. The dark-haired boy teased that the haired person must have memorized that exact speech. Voice told that others look down on her because she runs her mouth. The dark-haired boy told her to have confidence as a guardian knight. He admitted his own grades were awful, so she reminded him that just becoming a cadet isn't easy. He reminded her that their worst cadets were better than any 13-year-old on the outside. The dark-haired boy figured his personality was so pure he was probably bullied by his own family. He questioned how a swordsman so pure and loyal could become a merciless murderer. He remembered the guard's bitter suicide and worried about leaving to a similar fate. He said he wasn't hungry, telling the servant to eat the meal instead. A haired woman in armor joyfully called out to her young master. The dark-haired boy vowed to protect the other from being expelled this time. He resolved that one lifetime of misfortune was more than enough. He mentally reviewed his stats, noting his shadow energy and swordsmanship were only 2-star. He knew he could get his swordsmanship to 3-star in 2 years, but something else needed to happen first. The white-haired woman told her brother that today's training would be the same as yesterday's. However, she explained he would face the same training differently every day. The white-haired woman instructed her younger brother to look. The dark-haired boy would have to see with his mind's eye and face a training he'd never heard of before. He was told that for Blade Masters, obtaining the mind's eye was more important than anything else. He gave him a strict warning to keep his eyes closed. He wondered why he, a new 2-star, was learning a skill reserved for knights above 7-star. The armored figure added that since he couldn't use aura, he was struggling to grasp the technique. He pushed his doubts aside and tightened his grip, resolving to trust her training. Luna dismissed Jin for the day, telling him he did good work. The dark-haired man mused that the boy had once again exceeded his expectations. The speaker noted his focus was rare for a knight, confident he would understand it in a few years. The white-haired woman silently urged her brother Jin to keep growing. The brown-haired man commented on the tension as the uniformed figures welcomed their young master. He explained the spar was the largest part of their grade and a shortcut to becoming a guardian knight. The brown-haired man revealed Lady Rosa challenged the young master to defeat 10 upper ranks today. The brown-haired man informed the young master of his advancement to the intermediate training group next year. The young man with blue eyes stared forward with cold focus. Haired man worried aloud that was in that state again. The haired person insisted she'd handle the expulsion, but the dark-haired boy merely scoffed. They were told to spar 3 times with changing partners to find the 10 most outstanding victors. The instructor announced they would face young Master Jin individually, and he readily agreed. The dark-haired boy's blade met a vicious swing as the blue-haired boy staggered back. Someone observed they had earned their rank as a female cadet defeated her opponent. The commander-like man ordered everyone who wasn't selected back to their seats. An armored attendant told a figure with an axe to get ready, receiving a simple okay. The dark-haired boy's energy strike shattered her weapon as he questioned if her power was really a 10. He moved in, boasting that he only needed to defeat 2 more. The next opponent was an elite cadet named Mesa, who told the dark-haired man she was in his care. And Mesa declared she would beat him today no matter what. Knowing this spar was the most important thing, the dark-haired young man said he was looking forward to it. Mesa's first strike sent a blinding shockwave through the room. He realized Mesa was more powerful now, but remained certain he could still defeat her. He slashed down, realizing he had 8 more opponents to defeat after her. Pink-haired woman suddenly leaped forward, blocking the projectiles aimed at the dark-haired boy. She wondered why he only used simple attacks when he had mastered so many other techniques. He knew the armored figure's grip was deliberate and questioned the motive. He could only stare in utter disbelief. He charged forward, insulted that his opponent thought he would lose again. With a word of agreement, the gauntlet closed firmly around the other's arm. Challenging the young master, the woman with pink hair swung her pole weapon. The short-haired man watched in surprise as the haired figure grew distressed. With a confident smirk, the dark-haired boy moved in a blur of powerful energy. With a furious cry, the woman with pink hair thrust her sword into the dark-haired boy. The sword struck home with a devastating crack. Then a colossal blade of light slammed down on them from above. The woman with pink hair questioned how her sword could have shattered. Fragments of her sword began to gleam with a new light. The dark-haired young man told Mesa it was a good match. The dark-haired boy declared that the crossbow was now useless. As the dark-haired young man wondered what it meant to be a pink-haired woman addressed him as young master. She vowed to devote herself to training, promising she would beat him next time. From a lavish manner, an unseen observer confirmed everything was going to plan. Bracing himself, the light-haired warrior knew he wasn't strong enough to face all 10 trainees. He explained his last victory was a ploy to make his enemies avoid a direct fight. The dark-haired boy stood over his opponent, declaring his plan a success with the 10th victory. Someone off-panel praised the dark-haired boy, calling him youngest master. Offered him advanced training with a run, which the dark-haired boy gratefully accepted. When a brown-haired man announced the end of training, the dark-haired boy asked how much longer they had. The dark-haired boy declared he had one more person to face. An armored figure gripped a sword, asking who the boy was talking about. The dark-haired boy roared the name. An unseen challenger then ordered the stunned-haired youth to step forward for a spar. But the blonde-haired warrior could only sputter his name. A voice from the crowd warned he could not survive in that way. The brown-haired youth challenged his opponent to step forward and be destroyed. The haired warrior worried the young master chose her only because she was weak. The dark-haired man called out a single name. The haired young man told his guards he was tired from fighting, but they were perfectly fine. He challenged the haired girl to a fight, insisting he would still be stronger than her. The dark-haired boy struck down, demanding to know what his words meant. The haired young man struggled to hold his sword against the powerful impact. Swinging his staff, the haired figure desperately asked the young master what he was doing. A blast of blue energy suddenly slammed into the haired young man. Then a dark weapon crashed down in a flash of violent impact. The young man with dark hair smugly told her she blocked well. The young man with dark hair fired another energy blast at the surprised fighter. Something massive slammed down, shaking the very earth. The fighter cried out as the immense force crushed down on her. The young man with dark hair swung his staff, making the fighter cry out. The fighter lunged with her spear, forcing the young man with dark hair to dodge. The fighter staggered from a brutal blue-tinted strike. The fighter clenched his teeth, enduring the overwhelming blue power. The unseen young master asked if the fighter really thought this was just a spar. The young armored warrior with dark hair warned that he could have killed him just then. The young armored warrior with dark hair pinned the fighter's leg, offering mercy only once. The fighter strained, igniting the full power of his golden sword. The pink-haired woman couldn't believe she was seeing aura. Massive golden aura erupted from the fighter. The pink-haired woman urgently told instructor that the young master was in danger. The dark-haired young man commanded that what they saw today must be taken to the grave. The pink-haired woman quietly confirmed that she understood. The haired male affirmed that this was exactly what he wanted. He then challenged his opponent not to hold back if they knew how to use aura. He growled that the young master had made a critical mistake. He attacked in a fury, yelling that he should have been fought first. The dark-haired man screamed as his weapon carved through the air. His weapon met another in a violent clash of fiery energy. Their blades ground together, sending a shockwave of energy outward. He never knew his opponent was this strong. But elsewhere, a tall man with light hair insisted he already knew of strength. He said the haired cadet could figure out any opponent's strategy just from sparring. He could match any opponent, only to lose in the end. The haired man couldn't believe his opponent already knew how to use aura. A single blow from the dark-haired warrior shattered the woman's blade. The dark-haired warrior kicked, but the woman met the blow with a fist of pure energy. The impact sent a wave of agony through her glowing arm. The overwhelming pain forced a scream from the haired woman. Then the dark-haired warrior caught her in a crushing grip. He clamped his armored hand over her face, forcing a pained grunt. His brutal grip suddenly softened into her gentle embrace. The dark-haired figure loomed over his opponent's coughing form on the ground. The haired warrior coughed, declaring his opponent should have finished the fight. The dark-haired young man asked if they enjoyed toying with people. The warrior demanded to know why, and the dark-haired figure admitted the provocation hurt him too. Clenching his armored fist, he demanded to know why he was being pushed so hard. Kneeling before the sword, he admitted that he didn't know them. But the dark-haired male figure declared he was certain of one thing. The young man with dark hair stated only the strong can care for others, calling the listener both weaker and kinder. The warrior with blonde hair acknowledged he liked the idea, though he had his reservations. The haired character insisted that kindness alone wasn't enough to survive this hell. Voice urged to become strong and protect that kindness with everyone's help. Kneeling, the dark-haired man smugly apologized to the crying woman for his harshness. Two women carrying a large pot reacted with distress, the one exclaiming in shock. A female porter asked if they should return later, but an armored man told them to bring everything in. Then a voice told the armored woman to receive her own meal today. The dark-haired young man agreed to bring her meal along with his own. A young man named Jin faced his world with a nervous smirk. The white-haired woman recalled how difficult it had been to find a sword that would suit him. He recalled how a month ago, the white-haired girl pleaded to choose his sword. He conceded she had a better eye for weapons and would surely choose a superior sword. Suddenly, the blue-haired boy was gripped by confusion. The white-haired woman presented an axe sword called Vale's Slaughter, explaining she used it often at his age. The white-haired woman held out a bandaged weapon, explaining it was the true shape of her. Una asked Jin what he thought of her weapon. The light-haired woman hesitated, explaining this wasn't the sword for her. The gray-haired woman said she was joking, but the dark-haired person knew she wasn't. The dark-haired young man considered Vale's Slaughter an excellent sword, though it was a little heavy. From nearby, a white-haired woman watched the scene with quiet intensity. The white-haired woman relented, telling the boy she would show him the other sword. She opened an ornate door, explaining she put great effort into choosing this one. She explained that she'd thought of a sword that would suit only him. Then gripping the sword's hilt, she explained this was the one she had in mind. He was stunned to hear her say he had chosen at the selection ceremony. The white-haired woman presented a glowing sword, confident this was the one for him. It was the brother sword to wielded by the first patriarch. As the dark-haired boy stared in amazement, a voice guessed that he liked the sword. He called it an exceptional sword, and the silver-haired woman readily agreed. He knew this was a sword worth any price and couldn't believe she had chosen it for him. The light-haired woman explained her siblings also wanted the sword, but the dark-haired man felt something was wrong. The white-haired woman guessed Jin still wasn't comfortable with her. The gray-haired woman found that disheartening, so the dark-haired boy insisted he was being honest. The silver-haired woman demanded he soothe her disappointed heart, which stunned the dark-haired man. She told Jin to close his eyes, as she had one more thing to teach him. The comforting figure told the light-haired boy that some siblings loved him unconditionally. He insisted that he etch this lesson into his heart. The long-haired woman warned the dark-haired man not to upset her again as he fearfully apologized. Una confessed that she didn't want him to live a lonely life like she had. The long-haired woman said they would restart training, telling Jin to look with his mind's eye. The dark-haired man presented a gleaming sword and asked for his opinion. The long-haired man told the boy to sheath the sword, explaining he couldn't use with only 2-star shadow energy. The dark-haired young man called his awakening a mere imitation, confident he would soon reach 3-star. But an unknown voice cut him off, calling him arrogant and demanding the kid listen carefully. The long-haired man grabbed the dark-haired young man's head, shouting that the swords required the bare minimum of 3-star shadow energy. The long-haired man commanded him to use a normal sword until he reached 5-star energy, but the dark-haired young man began to protest. He stated he wasn't patient and just needed 1 year to reach 5-star shadow energy. He roared that the young man's goal was impossible, insisting it was all for his own good. His hand fumbled on the book as he dismissed the claim as utter nonsense. The dark-haired young man leaned forward aggressively, demanding what the figure just said about children. As an attendant shouted a warning, the black-haired assailant prepared to strike the concerned young master. A female servant appeared, explaining that instructor had summoned him to review a strategy map. The short-haired boy asked about the strategy while the other fretted over his comic books. The female instructor announced that had assigned their first mission, which would begin right after their break. The dark-haired man felt it was strange to depart immediately, just after he'd reached 3-star swordsmanship. The brown-haired woman supposed her confirmed advancement was why she received such a difficult mission. The dark-haired man told Gilly and to wait while he went to investigate alone. Explained that the young master was one of 10 cadets who received the assignment. Someone realized the search mission was dangerously close to the Gene Kingdom border and the White Wolf tribe's base. The dark-haired boy studied the map, thinking it was far too dangerous for low-ranked cadets. A haired woman gave him the map, calling it a difficult and unusually early first mission. He confirmed his team would be cadets with low grades and the unpredictable. He realized it felt like someone had intentionally ordered this to happen. He gripped the table, suspecting this mission was a test from his father. He declared to his father that his conviction was unbreakable. 3 days later at the southern border, the mission began: find the heir. The man with hair established 2 rules: report daily and call him commander. The young man with dark hair began his search, hoping the target was still alive. The commander questioned the report that had seen a beastman from the Watertail tribe. The young man with dark hair figured the White Wolf tribe wouldn't be found near such a docile group. The commander ordered to leave 2 hours early for Zone 13 because of the snow. He then ordered the rest of them to search Zone 13. The young man with dark hair had a bad feeling, as the mission was going too smoothly. He questioned if the mission was a test, remarking how poor the creatures looked. He accepted the creature's gift of food and promised to repay the kindness. He decided against pushing himself, planning to spend 3 days confirming the searched regions instead. Then someone cried out for their young master as an armored leg dropped from the sky. A man named shouted for young Master Jin, who demanded to know what was happening. Explained that the second group had been ambushed. As the commander ordered everyone to move, reported that a survivor escaped from the scattered second group. The dark-haired leader learned humans were behind the ambush and ordered his men to guard the camp without engaging. He ran through the snow after a figure, questioning why his group wasn't the target. He swore revenge against whoever laid hands on the. Then a voice cried out to the young master about the blood splattered against the sky. The man in white armor feared everyone was dead, but a voice told the blood was still fresh. The dark-haired boy pointed out there were no bodies, not even pieces of flesh. Then a voice reported that one person ambushed the second group and left behind bandages from. Someone commended Sierra, who said she found the severed arm to the west. Then a second ambush hit while they tended to the wounded, forcing them to flee west. The young man with dark hair ordered Sierra to regroup, telling it was time to move. Suddenly a light-haired figure's sword clashed against his own. An aide reported the second group's arrival, but the young master was already aware. Staring into the shard, the white-cloaked man saw Mesa was gone and a new ambusher had appeared. An obscured figure told to close his eyes for 2 seconds before attacking the one on the left. The blue-haired figure recalled how shadow energy increases an item's sharpness and destructive power. Struck by the blade, the masked warrior screamed that the energy also thinned an item's presence. As a blonde-haired warrior attacked from above, the masked warrior screamed in disbelief. Then a dark-haired man landed a devastatingly powerful blow. Then their swords crashed together in a blinding flash of energy. The masked figure cried out in agony, buckling under the immense pressure. Sword drawn, the dark-haired boy asked if everyone was all right as an injured man called out to him. The soldiers reported Mesa was captured, but the boy told them to prioritize getting treated first. He gritted his teeth, straining against a sudden and immense impact. A man with blue hair considered the plea for mercy, concluding their fear meant they weren't one of his followers. Gripping a glowing sword, a gloved figure offered 2 choices. The dark-haired man explained he could betray them and die alone, or remain silent and die alongside his family. The dark-haired man introduced himself as Jin, learning the captive belonged to a group called. He wondered if this was the terrorist organization active around the time of his death. He recalled the global uproar after killed the king of Jin and massacred the people. Their final ambition was to make their king the ruler of the entire world. The captive confessed he was a low-ranking member whose branch was stationed near the territory. The captive revealed Mesa was taken for propaganda under an order to capture female trainees alive. Cursing, the brown-haired man insisted he had told them everything he knew. The blue-eyed man gripped his sword, swearing he would keep his promise. The young man with dark hair asked how long it had been since Mesa was taken. The brown-haired man ordered them to get reinforcements, but the attendant asked if he was going alone. His men warned that it was too dangerous to face 24-star martial artists by himself. Another cadet agreed with, pleading that death was just a part of their duty. But the man in the white robe declared that a son must act when a cadet is captured. The white-cloaked leader warned directly that he would not tolerate any further insubordination. The figure warned the cadet that with the others injured, he was now the strongest and must stay focused. The dark-haired swordsman rushed toward the fallen woman, praying he had not arrived too late. The dark-haired young man calculated that his skills were no match for the 24-star soldiers. In his current state he knew he couldn't fight them all, so rescuing Mesa became the priority. He resolved to avoid any fights, focusing only on finding Mesa. The young man with dark hair activated his terrain detection ability. The blue-haired man cast his own spell, adding wind-tracking magic to the search. The blue-haired man followed the glowing path towards the meadow. He surged forward knowing they hadn't gotten far yet. An attacker identified him as a cadet just as he dodged the spear. A hooded figure ordered his warriors forward, telling them to get the dark-haired man. The dark-haired boy unleashed a powerful green slash to meet the oncoming charge. As the green blast hit, the hooded figure was shocked that it could use magic. Enraged, a man with a top bun screamed for them to just kill him. Brilliant flash erupted from an ornate weapon. The masked man's powerful swing slammed into the dark-haired man, sending him reeling. The powerful hooded man roared for Mills to back off, blasting fire from his staff. Then a glowing energy sword slammed down from the sky. Then a figure in a white shirt took hold of the fiery blade. The man with dark hair lunged forward, erupting in a blast of energy. He drove his flaming sword upward, blasting the man with the top knot back in a spray of blood. He slammed his sword down, deflecting the burst of fiery energy. The red-hooded figure staggered back in shock, flames erupting from his outstretched hand. The dark-haired man roared that if fire wasn't enough, he would unleash it all. Another figure attacked with ice, shouting that he would break right through. The dark-haired boy shattered the ice with a wave of blue energy, shocked by his own power. The robed figure wondered aloud how this was even possible. Someone cried out in horror as blood abruptly splattered across the snowy trees. The cloaked figure ignited a sword, swearing vengeance on the. The dark-haired boy followed the obvious trail, questioning if his opponents underestimated him. He figured they met the others here and left together by wagon. He reasoned that within's hierarchy, the spoils would be divided by rank. He knew they wouldn't dare touch a prize for a high ranker, giving him the only chance to safely rescue Mesa. He realized that being in Beastman territory meant their base was probably nearby. He vowed to create a distraction and find an opening to rescue Mesa. The dark-haired man unleashed a powerful energy attack, shouting its name. The blast sent a figure in a white coat plummeting into the inferno. The dark-haired man raised a magic circle, certain the flames would draw his enemies out. Voice cried out in shock at the sudden eruption of fire. Others frantically yelled for water to put out the sudden blaze. Dark-haired boy called them no good idiots. A muscular bald man demanded the mages use their water and ice magic to put out the fire. The muscular man screamed that someone started the fire, then suddenly cried out in pain. The muscular man screamed, his face a mask of raw agony. Another man yelled for the mages just as a blue light erupted from the inferno. The dark-haired man held up a set of keys, announcing he'd found a way to get in. He stepped into a chilly room and wondered aloud where Mesa could be. He spotted a hatch in the floor, wondering if he'd found a basement. An unseen voice called out for Mesa, who answered in disbelief that it was her young master. The dark-haired young man warned her of the danger, asking if she could walk. She admitted she couldn't run, so he offered to help her up instead. Sudden dripping sound made her cry out, asking what it was. As she asked for a promise, the dark-haired man told Mesa that was enough. She told him to leave her behind if danger came because he was far too important. The dark-haired man led her away, saying it was too dangerous to stay. He recognized the claw marks as the work of a beastman from a battled tribe. The dark-haired man stood guard as the pink-haired woman suddenly flinched in pain. Midst fire and smoke, a massive beastman snarled his hatred for the white wolf tribe. The pink-haired woman cried out she would stall for time as a bright blast engulfed her. A spiky white entity appeared over the ruins, demanding to know if the boy was responsible. Boy confirmed he was Jin, son of Chiron. Jin demanded a name from the unseen beastman. The wolf-like creature snarled in recognition, calling him a brat. Few days before the mission, a dark-haired young man stood at home, his sword pulsing with dark energy. With a furious shout, the dark-haired attacker brought his sword down on the panicked young man. The spiky-haired man yelled that releasing the sword would get him intoxicated by shadow energy. The spiky-haired man grabbed his collar, warning that awakening his sword again meant death by shadow energy. The dark-haired young man declared with a laugh that today his hunt for would change. A powerful wolf warrior shouted his name was from the family. His people were the White Wolf tribe, where a mature warrior was at least a 6-star threat. He recounted how the first patriarch betrayed and killed their god, the Great White Wolf. The dark-haired man knew he couldn't run away from him with Mesa. He roared that he would sacrifice his enemy at its altar to bring the god's soul peace. The enemy gave him an ultimatum, face him in battle or be torn to shreds. The dark-haired boy declared this would be an honorable fight. The white wolf-like creature was satisfied to find a who understood honor. With a roar for a good duel, the creature's fist weapon lunged forward. Its weapon struck the earth, erupting in a blast of shattered stone and blinding light. An armored figure intercepted the blinding strike with a staff. The armored figure's grip tightened around the glowing golden weapon. The blinding force of the impact struck the dark-haired man. Golden light exploded from the weapon, engulfing everything. The dark-haired boy realized blocking the white-haired man from the White Wolf tribe was pushing him to his limit. He knew he could still win using his sister's pendant, magic and shadow energy. He thought if he couldn't surpass this threat, he wasn't qualified to become strong. The dark-haired boy realized his magic was too weak to penetrate the White Wolf tribesman's pelt. The red-caped figure worried a guardian knight would detect their magic and reveal their broken taboo. He concluded there was only one choice left, unleashing a powerful arc of energy. He blasted the white wolf with a surge of pure shadow energy. The wolf-like warrior announced he was releasing his sword in a brilliant burst of energy. The hooded figure's blade crashed against the white-haired fighter's sword. The hooded figure complemented the good sword as the dark-haired man unleashed a powerful shockwave. He declared it didn't match the black sword their family was famous for. The dark-haired man cried out that his opponent was stronger than he looked. Blurred force crashes into the glowing beast in a chaotic explosion of energy. He recalled releasing his sword that night as the dark-haired man declared this was the end. The man finished his threat, referencing the white sword now gripped in a brilliant hand. The monstrous creature snarled it would offer him this altar. The dark-haired young man commanded himself to recall it right now. Suddenly, a muscular fighter blocked a glowing attack from a hooded assailant. The muscular fighter could only stammer in complete shock. As blue energy lines wrapped around it, the white wolf-like creature roared that it couldn't see. The demonic attacker brought a glowing polearm down on the defending fighter. He confessed he never understood his family's fame for their black swords until now. A powerful blow sent the bloodied wolf reeling in shocked disbelief. The silver-haired man declared it had been a good fight. Grunting with pain, the dark-haired swordsman struck his much larger foe. The dark-haired man screamed in agony as his eyes flared with a blue light. A storm of sharp silver projectiles then converged on him. Shadowy voices condemned the blue-haired boy, calling him a weak and useless shame to his clan. A shadowy figure crushed the boy's hand, furiously asking what he had just been told. The shadowy figure reminded the dark-haired boy of the price for releasing his sword without enough shadow energy. The entity asked if he would just succumb to the shadow energy. Voice reminded him what he had to do as the dark-haired man reached for his sword. The dark-haired man gritted his teeth as the dark power swirled violently around his head. The blue-haired boy cried out, unleashing his shadow energy. He couldn't use his power properly but was determined to try again. He willed himself to stay calm and try again. The dark-haired man struggled for every single breath. He worried about the sudden lack of pain, feeling his body now stuffed with shadow energy. Since he could still move, his only priority was to get Mesa back. Suddenly, the dark-haired boy demanded to know who was there. The haired man begged someone not to kill him. The dark-haired man asked if he was, noting there were still survivors. Announced he was from the Jin Kingdom's prestigious family. Then Jin announced he was ordered to search for the man. Rejoiced that I had saved him, while Jin felt sorry for his joy. He frantically introduced himself as of the Jin Kingdom's family. The young man with dark hair introduced himself as Jin, sent on a mission to find him. The boy's sheer joy made the young man feel sorry, as he had forgotten all about. Pink-haired woman promised to never forget his kindness, but he told her it was just a paid job. She asked how he got kidnapped, since they were just searching for a missing person. Flustered, the haired man tried to deny that he had been eloping with a lover. The dark-haired young man revealed his lover had died 2 years ago. He swore her face, voice, and even the moles on her wrist were exactly the same as when she was alive. The blue-haired boy realized this was likely the work of, and his transformation abilities. He suspected a connection between and, recalling his involvement with them as a child. The light-haired boy thanked him for listening, but the dark-haired boy was already planning his next move. The dark-haired boy clarified that the reinforcements had come for Mesa, not him. As Jin carried her, the pink-haired girl said she would never forget their meeting. He offered her help should he ever need it. He thanked Gilly after she congratulated him on his first mission and offered a bath. The shadowy creature called out to Hen, saying this was to be expected. An unseen figure reached for Butterfly and tauntingly asked if he had been good. Suddenly, a monstrous face with glowing yellow eyes dominated the view. The black-haired boy threw the small dragon, which was fine because he's not an animal. The bewildered man demanded to know if the cat was crazy for biting him. The black cat creature attacked the boy, screaming that it had only forbidden the power to protect him. Yelled that nothing was more important than the life of only contractor. A man with spiky hair called the forgotten strawberry pie a serious problem. A brown-haired woman screamed that the pendant wasn't a decoration, not after her pupil was kidnapped. A dark-haired young man insisted it would be a waste since he could face strong enemies. The long-haired man furiously called it a waste and shouted too. The dark-haired boy questioned their shock, and the brown-haired person angrily insulted him. The creature explained it knew because his shadow energy had suddenly jumped. Looking at the swirling energy, the dark-haired boy couldn't believe he'd gone up a whole star. After the short-haired man revealed he was one of 2 survivors, the dark-haired man asked who the other was. He clarified it was him since would have died, only to stop in sudden realization. He acknowledged their shared pain, then announced he was going to go wash up. The dark-haired boy insisted they let him starve, but the servant planned to prepare the young master's meal anyway. He announced his first mission was a success, so he would now join the intermediate class with 4-star shadow energy. He knew he needed to reach 6-star swordsmanship in 5 years to properly use his shadow energy. The man explained that 6-star swordsmanship was remarkable, but reaching 8-star and beyond made one an irregularity. Only one person had ever surpassed that limit, the demigod known as the Celestial Knight. He vowed he would surpass the title of Celestial Knight. For now, the dark-haired boy decided he would deal with problems after he enrolled. The brown-haired figure urged him to eat, but the dark-haired boy just complained that his food was too hot. He understood that in a place where only strength mattered, there was only one thing for him to do. A man with glowing blue eyes vowed to dominate the intermediate class with brute strength. A long-haired woman at a desk invited him inside. A young man in armor asked his mother if she had called for him. He told him the mission's result was very satisfying. He thanked his mother before asking to hear Petro's report. The long-haired man had been told his recommendation to move rooms was refused. She told him to start using the room reserved only for the next patriarch. He thanked his mother before refusing her command. The dark-haired man explained that the room was simply too large and extravagant for him. The dark-haired man insisted his decision was final. After a moment, an unseen superior granted the guard permission to leave. The dark-haired man accepted his mother's command without question. The dark-haired woman considered whether the youngest was without greed or simply consumed by it. She explained the room offered immense support, but it would also make him a target for the others. She reflected that he knew it was a test and eagerly awaited his performance in the intermediate class. A man in uniform announced their advancement to the intermediate class, which was divided into factions. He warned them that joining his faction meant facing territorial battles and harassment. The dark-haired young man promised to handle things but instructed everyone to move in groups of 3 until then. The group shouted their agreement in perfect unison. Then Zed was announced, an 8-star knight and Chiron's younger brother. He announced that 10 new rookies entered this year and 27 have already dropped out. He told them to learn from their seniors, as his only job was to teach swordsmanship. He explained their new duty was to handle all incidents short of murder. Then the man with the eye patch asked the seniors what he always emphasizes. He declared that the weak are not needed in. He shouted again that such weakness would not be tolerated in. The dark-haired young man decided the noise was just a tactic to discourage them. The observer spotted the twins as a voice shouted that the weak were not needed in. The spiky-haired boy echoed the shout, certain the twins had help from sisters and Anne. He decided he would show them just how greatly they had misunderstood. The dark-haired male then confronted the entire hall, holding a long spear. The black-haired boy reminded his friend not to be scared since they now had support. Suddenly a mysterious figure drew their shining blue blade. The blue blade immediately met another in a flash of brilliant sparks. The impact sent a spray of blood across the black-haired boy and his friend. Watching from a distance, a gray-haired man observed the fight through a red lens. The dark-haired man recoiled in shock from his bleeding arm. He stood over the injured boy, shouting that he was not the one who needed a hazing. He called for a medic, though his smug expression promised a darker fate for the rest. Jin cut through the trainee's rage by simply asking for his name. The boy gave his name as a voice demanded to know why it cut off his arm. The spiky-haired man demanded the dark-haired man draw his sword again. The dark-haired boy told his brothers to be quiet, promising he would duel them later. The armored man roared in outrage over his slashed trainee. The armored man could only gasp and cover his mouth. The dark-haired man smugly questioned who the trainee belonged to. He explained that he slashed the man after sensing a hint of bloodlust. The three men stared in utter shock, one of them stammering in disbelief. The terrified boy realized this was a hierarchy battle. The man with the eye patch smirked since they were hit back hard for suppressing their little brother. Grit his teeth against the pressure, his position now secure thanks to the twins. Jin's daring act was now a formal hierarchy battle, a long-standing tradition. He declared to all the trainees that he was Jin. He dared them to point their swords at him or even launch a surprise attack like he just had. He then threatened to attack at the slightest hint of hostility. The family's youngest son Jin simply answered the elder. The dark-haired figure demanded to know how the boy could dare defy him. The dark-haired boy said that he did, and demanded to know why. He explained that his real fight wasn't with the twins, but with the elder. The powerful figure found the claim interesting while gathering immense energy in both hands. The blue-haired figure demanded an explanation as the boy launched his powerful attack. The blue-haired warrior threatened to behead him on the spot.
With a glowing sword at his hip, a dark-haired young man questioned the unique hazing of the cadets. A white-haired man replied that he interpreted the action as an attack. In response, a hulking figure erupted with a devastating wave of energy. The dark-haired man met the blast with his own brilliant eruption of force. The explosive impact drew blood across the dark-haired boy's face. A man with an eye patch confirmed the accusation, but said he wasn't unhappy about it. The shadowed figure asked why he injured a cadet, and the boy confessed he couldn't yet win against him. He then revealed the man would have been his target if he thought he could win. His hand glowed with energy as he accused the boy of relying on his status. The white-haired man with an eye patch declared a run candle doesn't sit back simply because an opponent is stronger. He questioned if honor was truly forever when a life could end in an instant. A confident man scoffed at the foolish question. The white-haired man with an eye patch laughed, finding such foolish bravado made him, his uncle, happy. The white-haired man with an eye patch declared the dark-haired boy was worthy of the run candle family. An instructor declared the boy's actions defined the run candle identity as sword fanatics. A heavily armored man with glowing red eyes taunted the cadets to keep struggling and not forget their identities. An unseen commander dismissed them, stating their training would start tomorrow. The young man with dark hair offered them a piece of advice as their younger brother. He asked if their current fear of their elder siblings would last. The blonde-haired young man told him to start thinking about the future. The young man with dark hair placed the golden-hilted sword down as a black cat greeted his early return. A voice declared the hierarchy war with the Tana twins had begun, alarming the brown-haired woman. The dark-haired man confirmed that his sisters, and Mew, were likely backing the Tana twins. A dark-skinned man admitted he hurt a cadet, only to learn he belonged to his sister's faction. He explained that his sisters would be furious to learn that the cadet had joined their brother's faction by mistake. A dark-haired man scoffed, certain his brothers would never recruit a knight stronger than them. A brown-haired woman stated that since both ladies were flag-bearers, they could only fight other flag-bearers. She felt satisfied that her sisters, now flag-bearers, had no reason to come and harass her. But she knew they would use their authority to assign her missions that could get her killed. However, she knew difficult solo missions would let her use her full strength without being watched. The brown-haired woman told the dark-haired boy this was a great opportunity. The dark-haired boy said he would just thank his sisters and build up his own record. Suddenly, an unseen person grabbed the startled black cat. The brown-haired man figured there'd be no problem bringing the cat with him. Instead, the brown-haired man explained that Murakin had other tasks to do. The brown-haired woman instructed them to lay low until she could explain everything. They were informed of special training in a secret ground for the Run Candle bloodline. Their instructor warned that special privileges would not make the training easy. Their family swordsmanship was based on destructive power and the unhesitant will to possess everything. The dark-haired young man figured his sisters caused the scene, since ultimate techniques were only for flag-bearers. He explained their family's biggest difference was a swordsmanship without any fixed form. The elderly figure said their formless style was a result of the family's unique physical talents. He explained their blessed bloodline grants them a physical body and sword talent far beyond any normal human. He told them that despite slight deviations, they were still far above the average. The elderly man with an eye patch dismissed their prior lessons as simple and easy. He announced he would now give each person a steel ball. A dark-haired young man examined his ball, asking if it contained steel fragments. He identified it as the clear rock, which rings with a clear sound when struck. The one-eyed instructor told them to listen for the 3 sounds as he struck the rock. The one-eyed instructor struck the orb with a resounding metallic clang. The black-haired boy called the sound intensely unpleasant as he and the others flinched. A white-haired warrior slammed his sword through a table, declaring it was the next sound. Then, the white-haired boy gasped in awe as he and the dark-haired boy stared. A man with an eye patch explained the clear rock sound differs with the strength of each hit. He taught them that only the right amount of strength would create a beautiful sound. The white-haired mentor explained the training develops strength control, mental fortitude, and concentration. The dark-haired young man realized this was the perfect training for the Run Candle family's physical abilities. Still, the spiky-haired young man thought the drill was too safe for special Run Candle training. An older man with a bandana raised his glowing sword, announcing it was time for the last sound. An armored figure asked about the 3rd sound, insisting they heard a rattling from inside the clear rock. The cloaked figure struck the object with a glowing slash, saying the impact felt like steel fragments. The blue-eyed figure cried out in complete disbelief. The brown-haired boy shoved the light-haired boy, yelling at him to lie down. An explosive blast of light tore the massive object apart. A violent shockwave sent them all flying across the room. Everything was consumed in a blinding flash of golden light. Sprawled in the dust, the brown-haired young man choked on the smoke. The dark-haired boy ignored their shock and praised the youngest for his good instincts. A white-haired man explained that the clear rock explodes when struck too hard. Grinning, the scarred man announced it was time to start training.
What just happened? The kid is totally lost, but his buddy is already complimenting the youngest's sharp instincts. He calmly explains the massive explosion. Strike the clear rock too hard and this is what you get. The man lays it out for the giant. Apparently, they're the first ones to meet Luna and walk away without a scratch. The eye-patch-wearing mentor calls the display a brutish performance, but he's shocked. He never thought he'd see another unharmed child. A hand goes up. He wants to know the secret. How did Luna Nim dodge that? And he's dead serious about it. The old man warns him he'll be disappointed just like all his brothers were, but his reply is chillingly calm. That's all right. Unlike the others, she didn't evade it. She's taking the full force of the explosion right to the face. She cuts right through the attack, her own power exploding in a brilliant fiery arc. The smoke clears after their all-out assault, and she's totally fine. She tanked the whole thing without a scratch. And just like that, the new task is announced. Strike the clear rock. The 3 of them are completely. The one-eyed master gives his final command. Produce a clear sound anytime, any place, no exceptions. Lost in her book, the young lady politely accepts a tray of tea from her dutiful nanny. The tea talk is over. He gets straight to the point, the sibling who tried to assassinate Jin. He doesn't hesitate. He names his suspects, and Anne, he's convinced they were behind the whole thing. She mulls it over. They're troublemakers, but are they crazy enough to attempt an assassination right here in Storm Castle? She calmly lays down the law. Targeting anyone still inside Storm Castle for the succession wars is strictly prohibited. She knows the consequences. If father discovers their plan, the family will be torn apart and their lives will be forfeit. The old lady isn't convinced. Is young Master Jin lying, or did he just misunderstand the entire situation? He was only 10. For 5 years they've investigated and found nothing. Still, someone is certain he didn't lie. It wasn't just awkwardness. He genuinely felt like his life was in danger just by being near him. They agree to investigate Anne, but the lack of answers is making her deeply anxious. This silence feels completely ominous. She smirks, reassuring her nanny. I'm over 30 now, don't you think you're worrying a little too much? She casually wonders how Jin is doing. Oh, just in time for the effects of her mind's eye training to kick in. She knows the clear stone training is brutal, but she just smiles. It's so satisfying watching someone grow stronger. 4 hours into the training, and the entire city is already shaking under the immense pressure of his power. He grits his teeth, pushing past his absolute limit. This training is on a whole other level. This feels the worst. A raw, uncontrollable power erupts from his body, sending his attackers flying in agony. The one-eyed instructor announces their brief moment of salvation, a 5-minute break. He was wrong. Control is useless without raw strength. It's time to focus on pure destructive power. His aura-infused strike connects, but he's still not satisfied. His uncle could shatter this stone with pure strength alone. If he can't get stronger, he'll just have to sharpen his aura. The blade itself glows with immense focused power. Okay, new plan, he's going to sharpen his aura until he hears a specific sound. That's the only way he'll break the clear stone. Okay, don't rush, he reminds himself that even his idiotic brothers could do this in his past life. Failure is not an option. Mysterious man with a red eye patch is watching intently. That little smirk says he's just found something very interesting. The others are barely holding on, but this kid is just meditating, radiating pure energy. He's on a whole different level. This higher-up is actually considering it. He thinks the kid might even be able to break Luna's record. The message for his brothers is cold and simple. If you're going to collapse tomorrow, don't even bother showing up. The brothers finally hit the floor. He's impressed they lasted this long. Guess they really are after all. And the youngest brother is revealed. He turns, that look on his face screaming pure, unshakable determination. 1 month later, it's March 1795. A sea of cadets snaps to attention before the grand training facility. The intermediate class receives its first mission, and it's a glorified babysitting gig for some rookie blacksmiths. Alright, mission number 3 is officially announced. It's demon beast subjugation and the targets are straight-up orcs. The mission is set for the unguarded areas of. He scans the participant list, and suddenly pauses. Something isn't right. The guard completely loses his composure, stammering and fumbling with the paper. So much for looking professional. Voice announces a hit list of 10 names. The looks like her entire world just shattered. His hand clenches the order. The target is set. 25 orcs must be subjugated. She's not messing around. To face the orcs, you need to harden your resolve and devote yourself completely. The briefing concludes with a chilling good luck. The men stand rigid, knowing this is likely a suicide mission. Orc subjugation for rookies. The kid in the back already knows the score. They're coming back beaten half to death. Might as well prepare the incense and a coffin now. He even suggests they take time to write their wills. This guy's cold. Please save us, the man cries, practically sobbing. Young Master Jin just scoffs back, completely unimpressed. Mesa grabs his arm, desperately trying to hold him back. They aren't strong enough for this fight, but he's blinded by rage. Have you forgotten where you are? She roars, her eyes wild with fury. This is RUNCNDL. The elite squad stands ready, their faces grim. Their mission has 2 parts, succeed and more importantly, come back alive. Her eyes blaze with conviction. She screams their one and only plan. It's time to knock them down a peg.